Adam Seat, and I'm the lead pastor at Orange United Methodist Church.
I'm Kori Robbins. I'm the associate pastor here at Orange.
And I'm Brad Inman, the other associate pastor at Orange.
We are thankful to have you watching and sharing in this time together as we share these table talks. And today we're really talking about how we care for ourselves during the midst of this pandemic. We are all in such stressful and trying times, and so we want to find out how we're taking care of one another and how we're taking care of ourselves. And frankly, here at the church, the entire church staff and our volunteers are doing amazing things and serving God in remarkable ways. And we're all probably stepping out into uncomfortable areas, having to do things that maybe we have no training for or experience with in these times of a quarantine. And so let's just start and talk about what are some of the things we're having to do right now that maybe we have no training or experience with.
Yeah, it's been kind of funny in a way. I keep telling folks, it feels like I work in the same company, but I've changed positions. And so there's like a brand new learning curve, and I'm having to learn these different facets of a job that I kind of know, some of the need to know information about. But I'd say definitely before this happened, I had never really facilitated a virtual. I've been on lots of conference calls, but I hadn't facilitated one myself, not at the very least with discussing it, Bible studies, but our Enneagram study we just completed, we were needing to break out into smaller groups. And so had to do some research and figure out how to send people into their own breakout rooms within Zoom and trying to, navigate and facilitate deep conversation and honoring one another's voice and recognizing when people want to speak and also just taking kind of the temperature of the room. I'm definitely an energy feeler. It's hard to feel energy on a screen. So those are definitely some of the challenges and things I've had to navigate since we began this, 2.5 months ago?
Right.
Yeah, it's crazy to think that 2.5 months ago, I didn't really even know what Zoom was. And now it's just like another way of life. The way
Now you're a Zoom expert.
Yeah. I like the way that Kori explained it about like taking a different position in the same company. I've been telling people that my job went from youth pastor to social media influencer overnight. Because so much of what I had to teach myself how to do was, I think I learned at least 12 new computer programs about how to live stream, about how to edit video, and all these other things. I had to buy a couple pieces of equipment for my computer just to be able to do the things that I now needed to be able to do. But yeah, I learned OBS, YouTube live streaming, all these different things. Shout out to Ryan Lutz for helping me with the learning curve for those. But the other thing that's interesting is some of the things I've just had to realize that I can't do. Some of the parts of my job. Counseling is really hard via Zoom, and a lot of our teenagers don't want to Zoom. So how do you do counseling via text message when you can't read body language and you can't tell how truthful the person is being, and when they want you to kind of nudge them further and when they need you to kind of pull back a little bit? That's hard.
Yeah, I think one of the things for me that has been interesting to learn and experience is really speaking to an audience through a camera lens. Sunday mornings, delivering a message that sometimes, part of my messages almost always will have at least one moment that I think is funny. No one else may, but telling a joke or something that you think is funny to an almost empty room and not getting that engagement, it's interesting. And so that's been something to have to adapt, and to inside my head the voices are laughing, and so I have to go with that and count that as credible. But I think everybody has had to shift into things that maybe they weren't prepared for. I know parents quickly had to shift to working at home, which, as we all know, brings different challenges. Brad, I mean, you have there, when you're working at home, you have Archie, your dog, that is a loving and faithful companion that wants your attention a lot. And so that creates a challenge. And so, but then I think about all the parents that also became school teachers in the midst of this, of having to supervise homeschool. And I know, like, on day 3 of all that, I remember seeing someone post on Facebook or Instagram something like, day 3 of homeschooling, they've graduated, I'm done. So it's been a challenge for everybody, I think, as they've had to adjust to a new reality for where we find ourselves right now.
Absolutely. And just the mental exhaustion that comes from having to shift and be more creative, I think is something that can require us to have a lot more grace towards ourselves and towards, those with whom we're interacting, our kids, our colleagues. And with that said, that mental exhaustion, and it feels to me like more to do, even. And so while we're not able to gather right now as a congregation physically in one room, have you felt like this has led to less or more work? I know a lot of some of the articles that we've been circulating amongst the staff have said that this pandemic has forced us to shift into a 7-day work schedule, but it doesn't really matter because we don't even know what day it is, besides that. But how have you both experienced that?
Yeah, I know. I typically try to take Fridays as my day off, but in this time, I mean, I think about the first week when we realized that we were going to have to uh, not have live in-person worship together, not gather together. You know, we called an emergency staff meeting on Friday, which was typically the day that I take off. But sure enough, I was going to be present to meet with the staff as we were having to shift and pivot and figure out what we were going to do. And so it's very difficult to establish those boundaries when there seems to be no ebb and flow of true time. It used to be Thursday night. I would always tell people Thursday night is my Friday night. And it's just kind of like I felt like a weight of burden off my shoulders on Thursday night because I knew my weekend was Friday and Saturday. Well, now Thursday night comes and I can't say I have that same release because I know Friday's still coming and there's still things, and on top of that, Sunday's coming. And as we're recording and broadcasting a live stream worship, Kori, you've even talked about that, about how intimidating it can be knowing that every word that we say in front of that camera, people can go back and critique and analyze, and we want to make sure we say the right things and don't say the wrong things. And so, yeah, it's hard to have a sense of a regular work week, I think.
Absolutely. I definitely agree that it's been more work. Like Kori and I said, it felt like we picked up different jobs, and anybody who has had a job knows that when you start something new, there's a learning curve, and that means you're working hard, and that mental fatigue is real. So I've certainly been working more hours, especially in the beginning. You're just trying to figure out, there's so many things you have to figure out in order to do the things that you need to do. So especially those first few weeks that involved a lot of learning of new things. But since then I've found that there's you can do something for about a month, and then it's then that you can reevaluate those things and see how they're doing. And then it's like, okay, here are all the changes we need to make, and you're off again. I'm doing a whole new thing. So it really is in cycles, but even in that kind of, maybe I had a week of more downish time where I wasn't trying to just start something new. You're seeing all these ideas and trying to come up with something new, because there is just that knowing that people are hurting. And when you know that, you're just trying to figure out, okay, what can I be doing that I'm not doing right now? So even if there isn't something concrete that you're working on, your mind is just always going. So I've been putting things off towards later in my week. So Saturday is supposed to be one of my days off, and I've been writing my lessons on Saturdays and all those. But trying to at least respect my Monday off has been important to me. And that is the one anchor of, okay, this is one of the days of the week I know.
Well, yeah, and I think my day off is Monday as well. But it's difficult. I have a 2-year-old, and so it's really just run all my errands and mom day, which I love, and it's such a gift. But in a season, it feels like we should have more grace for each other. We actually have a lot less. Like you were saying, with the worship being live streamed and captured for all of eternity, until this internet thing stops being, which I don't think will happen. That there's less grace. And I know with lots of folks who are working from home, their gauge of productivity is based on whether they're logged in or not. Whereas it used to be, I'm at work, I'm doing work. And so I'll go down the hallway and get my coffee, or I'll go down and talk to my colleague for 20 minutes, and so there was those spaces of being able to take a break, and that have been removed. And I know for me, those moments of grace that I built into my life are no longer accessible. I used to grab a coffee usually during some point in the day, and that was my little respite. That was a little gift to myself, and I don't have that anymore. So I have to replace it with things. But in a season where I think we need more grace, I witness less grace in a lot of ways, and I think that's what's made it feel like more work for me.
And less grace for ourselves as well. If I were working at the church under normal circumstances, if I'm eating lunch, then I'd go across the hall to Diana's and we'd talk for a half hour and not have a second thought about it, because that's what we're supposed to do. That's totally fine. But because I'm at my house, when I have lunch, I'm having it at my desk, because if I go and eat at the couch and watch a TV show for 20 minutes, even though that's less time than I would be talking to Diana, it seems less right. So I have less grace for myself as well, even though Adam, you're not keeping track of me. You don't have hidden cameras at my home. Okay, good. So, but that's totally on me.
I think it's interesting that I read an article just this week that CEOs were reporting that they are seeing such an increase in the productivity of their employees that are working at home. And I think some of that is, like Kori said, the distractions have been removed. And so they're at home and they feel this pressure of knowing that somebody is looking to see when they're logged on. I know I speak on behalf of my wife that, first thing when she gets up in the morning after we walk the dog together, she then will log on to work and get started. And, she'll eat lunch right there at her desk many times. And in the evening times, if I have a Zoom call meeting, more likely than not, she's working. And so she's finding herself working more hours than what she was, even when she was going into the office.
Absolutely. And the same for, my husband, Tiagan, is in home health. And in order to limit contact and the number of folks who are in and out, he's actually picked up 3 night shifts, a few hours here and there. But so it's added pressure to him and in so many ways. And so I think it's surprising how much more work there is, for sure.
Well, in this time, as we find ourselves so swallowed up by our work and by the things that are going on around us, how are you taking care of your hearts, both your physical heart and your spiritual heart? Because this is such an important time that we actually do wait on some things and take care of ourselves in these moments. So how are y'all taking care of yourself?
I think a big thing is reminding myself that I'm not God. Reminding myself that I can't fix the majority of the problems that are in front of me right now. that I can't stop a pandemic, and that a lot of the ministry that I want to do, I'm not capable of doing, and reminding myself that that's okay. That I can't fix the lives of the people who I know are hurting. I can pray for them. I can be a listening ear. I can do some things, but I can't fix everything. And being real with myself about that has been a way of giving myself grace that's been really important. Another big work project that was kind of a catch-22 was I was creating daily devos for the youth, and man, those took a lot longer than I thought they would when I said I'm going to send one out every day. But at the same time, it did force me to be in the Word every day. And though it was pressure to get it done, every time after I finished, my heart felt better. I had definitely connected with God during that time, and spending some time in God's Word every day really was life-giving, for sure.
Yeah.
I think for me, for the spiritual, it's been helpful because I've tried to resource specifically our parents and my Sunday school class and the small groups that I'm teaching. I've tried to resource them with virtual options for devotionals and prayer and opportunities to engage the Word. And in doing so, I've been able to glean from those resources. And so I found I like to do prayer podcasts now that I just put them on in the car and pray in the car. Martha Prays off of Spotify is the Book of Common Prayer daily prayers. And so there's 5 available throughout the day. And I've really enjoyed those of just kind of grounding me, but also to create space, since we're not able to do the same kinds of pastoral care in terms of going to the hospital and visiting with folks, to try to carve out more space for those prayer opportunities. And I've really enjoyed, making phone calls to parishioners and checking in. And that's been very life-giving to me when they share with me what's happening, the ways that they've been praying for us, and the ways that they've been thinking of us. I just got a text message this week from a member who said, it's just on my heart to tell you that I'm praying for you this week. And I was so grateful for that. My physical heart, I put my husband and I on a search for a treadmill desk, and it was secured. So I've been using my treadmill desk, walking while I've been praying and sending emails. Also trying to do yoga on our back deck. We never spent a ton of time on our back deck, but now it's become like our sanctuary. We spend all of our time back there. And I've been trying to get out there, and because one of my favorite comedians says, I've watched Netflix, all of it. I'm done. I finished it. And that's kind of how I feel when it comes to television. And it's like, I finished the whole thing. So I've got to figure something else to do. And so getting outside and just paying attention to Ephraim and to nature has been a huge reprieve, and something that's kept me healthy.
Yeah, that's funny.
That's great. I want to hit on one thing.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I want to hit on one thing that Kori said. That's that so much of what we do is one-sided, what we're trying to do in ministry. When, Sunday mornings we get to see the comments, and the comments are great, but it's still not really having a conversation with people. With youth group, I've been sending out the devos, I've been doing the YouTube live streaming, and you see the view count click up, but you don't get that payoff. There's a reason I'm not a social media influencer, and it's because that doesn't give me life. So when I do make the time, like Kori said, to make those phone calls and talk with people where it can actually be two-sided, that's where I get the reason that I'm in this job, because I love God, but because I love others, and I want to have that relationship with them, and they're not meant to be one way. So I think that's really important, Kori.
Yeah. One of the things that my wife and I have been doing to sort of take care of us is we have a golden retriever, and we always would walk the golden retriever. Runner is his name. So kind of funny that we'd walk Runner, but we'd walk him several times a day. And, I've found, like I saw in one funny video, those walks with a dog, that's clutch for us right now. And so I look forward to the opportunities for us to walk. And as we've been out walking, we see neighbors some that are healthcare workers, some that are pastors of other churches and different denominations. And so we'll stop and have a conversation and talk with them what it's like at the hospital. How is your church adapting to this? But even just talking to regular, ordinary people that, not that we're all not regular, ordinary people, but just talking to people about how they're adjusting and how they're taking care of themselves. And so those walks have been so special for me, to be able to have a conversation with my wife and to have a conversation with people in our neighborhood. And as we were out doing so many walks, I'd see so many people running, which used to be a passion of mine, but I had quit running back in 2017, and more and more I just started feeling this pull. And so a week and a half ago, I made a decision, I'm going to go run. And so since then, I've been faithful. I've kept it up, not doing it every single day because I'm older and I don't want to get hurt. But when I run, that becomes such a prayer time for me, that physical exercise, and it just is a clearing of my mind, and it allows God to speak life into me. And I remember the first marathon that I ran was on a Sunday. And my dad wasn't real thrilled with me that I was going to be running on a Sunday instead of going to church. But I told him, I said, Dad, over the course of 26.2 miles, I promise you, I will pray a whole lot more than I ever would sitting inside any church. And I did. And so it's been nice to get back involved in that running and to take care of myself in that way, to take that time instead of serving just somebody else. It's allowing me to minister to myself and God to speak that into me. And one other neat thing that I will brag about that my son did along with me is we built a raised bed in our backyard to plant some garden vegetables. And I will tell you, I go out every day, 2 or 3 times a day, first thing in the morning and then later in the evening and then later again. And I like to see what's growing, what's popping up. And so we've had so much fun looking at the things that are growing and seeing how that's progressing. And that's fed my soul, and I look forward to it feeding my belly as well.
Yeah, we planted just a few beds too, and I gauged the pandemic length by the height of my tomato plant. So we are this many days in. In terms of taking care of ourselves, we've mentioned, but how are we looking out for one another? How have you experienced that here in this place, but also outside of this place? How are we caring for one another?
Well, I think every week we have an opportunity through Zoom to have a conference call with all the staff. And so I know that in that, one of the things we check in and say, how are you doing? I mean, during the time of this pandemic, Sheila, our financial secretary, became a grandmother for the first time. And, my heart was filled with joy for her, but my heart also hurt for the ways that she couldn't be present there at first at the birth. And so it's important that we acknowledge the reality of the hurt, acknowledge the reality of one another's loss, and try to come alongside and to say, I'm sorry, but I'm here for you, and I'm here with you as much as we can be with.
Yeah, and I think one way that I've tried to check in with people is to understand that I know some people, even in a small group setting with people who we love and care about, like our staff meetings, that they can't be real in that when it's said like, hey, how's everybody doing? They'll give a half answer or something like that. And so I'll reach out to them after the meeting or during the meeting in the little side chat, like, hey, how's it going really? Like, I know, and follow up on something specifically. Hey, I know you were struggling with this last week. Is that getting better? And just making that more one-on-one connection a little bit more, I think has been helpful. Yeah.
Well, I know that, for me, we've continued, Adam and I especially have continued to be in the office and trying to get here, which is, it's so essential for me to be displaced here from my home and working because I have a 2-year-old that likes to interrupt phone calls and emailing and things like that. So it's been a gift to me. My in-laws have helped out, but I know that Adam and I have had a lot more conversations and a lot longer conversations, and we've given space for that. And that has been such a gift to me in this season of just becoming even more of a team, and learning a lot more about each other and our work styles. And then, so in a professional context, that's been just a real care to me. But in a personal context, I've still appreciated my friends. Those, I have a few in the church, but a few in our neighborhood who send me a text message. I'm going to Costco, anything you need. I'm going here, anything you guys need. We baked extra cookies. Can I bring them over? And it has just reminded me of how much we can care for each other in simple ways, that I pray that we will carry beyond this unique season. And even Pastor Adam, since we're kind of quarantining in the same ways, Pastor Adam's son has helped me out on a couple of Fridays with watching Ephraim, which Ephraim loves because his son, Adam's son Aaron, is just as into monster trucks, it seems. But that has been also just an incredible gift of the ways that community can step in to help one another. And I've seen it across the board in our church too.
I think another way our staff has been really supportive of one another is giving one another grace, of trying to encourage one another to give themselves grace. I know there have been a couple of times where I've come into the church and I haven't seen you guys in like 3 or 4 weeks, and I've told you on Zoom phone calls, like, or sent you a text like, yeah, that service went really great on Sunday. But I feel like you guys receive it differently when I've been there in person, to be like, no, for real, you're doing a great job. Like, take a breath. It's okay. You guys are doing great. And I've received that from you as well. Saying like, look, I know you're not at the church, but I know you're working hard. Like, take a breath. And I've really appreciated that from you both as well.
I think it's an important time for everybody, in every occupation and every calling, to be able to look out for their team, whatever their team may consist of, that they check in with one another and really see the person and not the job, because we may have professional things that maybe are a struggle in this time of having to learn how to do new things, but even in the midst of that, there is those personal things that we're going through, and to be reminded we're not alone. We're in this together. We truly are. I mean, it's amazing when I have a chance to talk with Dr. Tom Bellhorn, our staff parish relations chair here at Orange, and one of the first questions out of Tom's mouth almost always is, how are you doing? And the fascinating thing to me is, here's somebody, the director of pediatric infectious diseases at UNC Memorial. He's on the front lines. He's the one that I'm worried about, and he's wanting to know how I'm doing. And so, I try to make sure that I tell him, okay, time to take that hat off of being staff parish relations chair and put on the hat of being a member of Orange. How are you, Tom? And so I think it's important we all see the person and not just the profession in this time. So.
And I think one of the things that has really been helpful in caring for myself mentally, emotionally, and physically is gratitude. It's just trying to practice overwhelming gratitude in the face of what seems like we've lost so much, and we have, and to just take stock and to say thank you to God for the ways that we are continuing to be able to connect, and the new ways that we're able to care for one another, and the ways that this is being redeemed, to give God thanks for that.
Thank y'all for your time today, and to be willing to be as transparent as we've been, vulnerable as we've tried to be. But we acknowledge the reality that everybody that might watch this is going through this thing that we're going through together. And so we give thanks for the ways that they continue to attend to the faithfulness of the body of Christ, and the ways that they're attending to themselves. And maybe today, the purpose of this video was to be that encouragement, that it's okay to press pause. It's okay to to stop running for a moment and just walk, catch your breath, let your heartbeat lower so that you can continue on this journey together. So thank you both for being a part of this, as each week we have an opportunity to try to speak life into our congregation. And so thank you for sharing today. And thank you all for watching this. Hope you're all blessed. Thank you.